Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, I'm thrilled to chat with the co-creators of HBO's Generation series, Zelda and Daniel Barnz. We discussed their work dynamic as daughter and father, how Zelda kept the series paced so well, the decisions made with the series' stylish camera work, episode length, casting, and much more. Generation has been one of my favorite shows of the past year, and the entire 16-episode season is now available to stream on HBO Max. It's a fun interview, and I hope you enjoy.
Hi.
Thank you both so much for making time today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
So I've gotten some screeners that would put me ahead of where folks are, but I've actually stopped at just what's been released so far because I love closed captioning, and so I've been watching them just on regular HBO. The show is fantastic. It caught me so off guard with how heartfelt and honestly kind of tear-jerking it can be at moments, but how hysterically funny. The amount of physical comedy in the show surprised me. So I was thrilled to talk to you both about making Generation and just everything about it.
That is literally the nicest thing you could say, by the way. Thank you.
As my partner put it, texting me about it, holy crap, this show didn't come to play when she started the first episode. It kicks off so wild. Now, Zelda, when you set out to start writing this, what was the impetus beyond? I'd like to write something that reflects my life or accurately reflects my peers or people I know, but then there's always that hump where you got to name a main character. You got to make this about these fictional people. What was the gestation of getting it into a really solid, tightly wound ensemble show?
Yeah, thank you so much. I definitely think it was interesting. It was a lot of exploration. I was kind of just thinking about creating characters that made me feel represented, or characters that I thought might make my friends feel represented, and characters we maybe hadn't seen on TV before. In particular, I think that all the characters, like certain aspects of them, were kind of inspired by real things, and so I started there, and then working from that place. I mean, I personally love naming characters. I usually really like to use baby naming websites and just go through like lists of names and pick one that I love. And that's always really fun for me. And then I brought it to Daniel, and Daniel really incorporated a lot of like writing experience of like what makes a character compelling, kind of into these sort of ideas that I had, that I kind of, I knew what they were, but not who they were yet. And we kind of together crafted who they were. And then we kind of built plot and like beginning and end, and then we figured out setting from there. So yeah, we started with these kids and then kind of dropped them into a world and figured out the rest. Yeah.
I could absolutely see, once you have these characters down and can kind of let them run, that the ancillary kind of storytelling down the line would just start to happen. I mean, Chester's going to make things happen, and Nathan's going to say something crazy and flip out his mom. And I mean, these things are just going to start to snowball. When it came time to really make it real and to cast it, I can't imagine some of the potential pitfall points where you could lose track of the tone or lose the balance of humor that you set out to make happen. Do both of you, either of you, remember particular points where you feel like this was a really important moment or decision where we kept the show the show?
Yeah,
In
definitely.
terms of the
I think
casting process?
The casting process, or on set, even just moments of no, this needs to play like this.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that once we kind of had a strong concept of what the tone of the show sort of needed to be, which I think kind of happened for both of us in the writing of the pilot, I think it definitely, those moments really did become clear. A big one for me that I really remember was casting Miss Anya as Ariana. I remember she was in the audition room and we were like, she's so funny and her humor is so specific and perfect for this character. And it was so important. I remember she made us laugh so hard in her self-tape, and then she made us laugh in the audition room, and we just really loved her energy. And it's so amazing, too, because, I mean, Ariana's character is really funny, and that is really important. But we kind of realized with Nathania, as we continued to move forward with that character, that Nathania is also an incredible actress when it comes to those, like, really, really poignant moments. And so that was, like, so amazing that we were able to have this really incredible actress accomplish this really deep and like kind of all over the place character emotionally. So yeah, that was really incredible.
That's so one of the things that struck me was throughout the entire how solid the entire cast is. So Ariana, for example, you watch that character. I feel like in the hands of another actor, her humor could come across as too much, too edgy, too mean. Instead of revealing this, no, there's going to be something with that character. There's something with her and her dad's. There's something to explore there that she's making these jokes this hard. Though I barked out laughter at her yelling at the security guard in the mall. I just about lost it when she's running the inflatable pool. Daniel, in terms of directing these, I love the little moments. I mean, even Chester eventually gets one of with somebody that's not inappropriate. These kind of loving cutaways where the sound editing changes, and we get these kind of drifting moments of that stolen kind of out of the action moment for the character. Can you talk about the choices to kind of make some of these stylistic choices in directing?
Yeah, and thank you so much for noticing those, because I think, those were moments that we thought a lot about. But after Zelda and I had written the pilot together, and then I knew that I was going to direct it, one of the things that was really critical to me was to preserve that inside-out feeling that Zelda helped to bring to the script, and to feel like you were really immersed and seeing the world through these characters' eyes. So even from the pilot, we set up these like really stringent rules about perspective and about not letting the camera see things that the characters themselves couldn't see or on some level experience. And obviously there's, a couple of exceptions to those. And, we could debate whether, seeing a very wide shot from behind of Chester, sitting on a rooftop sign is, a subjective point of view. But in our mind, it actually kind of was, because it felt like that's how he's experiencing this moment. But generally, we do a lot of like, if the character can't see it, then we can't shoot it. And we do certain things like when we're in a certain character's point of view, we'll always shoot them clean and everybody else over the shoulder. And so I think as part of that like immersive POV language, we wanted to capture these moments where characters would see another character and the language would shift a little bit. And we use these very long lenses and we let characters kind of look directly into the lens. And it felt like those would be of a piece of how these characters are kind of experiencing the moment and lend itself more to the subjectivity of their experiences that we really wanted to try to amplify.
I was really amazed. I think I realized, probably 9 episodes in, that Justice Smith is so good. I have already fallen in love with them in another project. Did not realize that the same person that was Ezekiel in The Get Down is Chester. The work is just absolutely fantastic. Did either of you have a kind of a favorite surprise moment of wow, I love this scene when I wrote it or when I read it, but what just happened is better than the sum of the parts that I saw coming?
I mean, as it pertains to Justice, it's almost like a daily experience. And, what's really wonderful about writing for Justice is there's almost nothing that you can't craft for him that he can't figure out how to make feel real and natural. And it's a challenge because we never want the show to feel written. We never want it to sound like the characters are saying lines. But Chester's really, this is a character who's like quoting RuPaul. He's quoting Kafka. Sometimes he's like pulling in this sort of like drag speak. And so in the hands of another actor, it could easily feel so forced. I think Justice would probably just like he'd like jump over the moon to hear what you just said, because I think he's so real and believable in the show that people forget how different he was. And in fact, when he came in and auditioned for us, it was not at all clear that he was the perfect choice for the role based on what he had done before. He's obviously a phenomenally gifted actor, and so we knew we were excited to, audition him and work with him. But just in terms of him creating this character, in terms of a moment of surprise, I will say that, he showed this sort of great emotional range in the audition, but when he showed up for his first costume fitting, so this was kind of close to the beginning of us shooting the pilot, he'd already done a lot of work on the character. He's a very dedicated actor. He does a ton of homework. And he put on his costume, and he just started like bounding through the pre-production offices. And I never forget, and he landed on the couch in my office, and he was Chester. And it was just this like extraordinary, like goosebumpy moment where you realize that this character that you had created had meshed with this phenomenally gifted actor and created this whole new being. And I think that he has taken the screen by storm with this role, and really can't be praised enough.
I agree. I feel like there's a light touch to Chester's ability to have basically an entire second set of dialogue that he's saying just for himself. The holding the Barbies up and saying, "I don't have any black friends," and then sniffing the marker and moving on and doing all of this while carrying on a second conversation. You're right. I mean, it could be really mishandled I feel like in another actor's hands. In terms of writing dialogue that dense and that funny and sweet, Zelda, can you talk a little bit about kind of your learning curve in getting the scripts to where you wanted them, and then at some point having to trust the show's tone to other writers?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think starting it, I was kind of, my approach was at first, and is still to some extent, to kind of start by just writing, for the team characters at least, how I would phrase things, and then adjusting them based on that particular character's like voice and tone and how they talk and their speech patterns and all of that. And I definitely think my learning curve, was huge. I'm sure that the first few pieces of dialogue I wrote were a mess, but I definitely think that, I just kept practicing, and I had to work on many, many drafts and read so many drafts of the pilot. And so I think my learning curve really happened over the course of figuring out the pilot draft, because initially also the pilot was an hour. It was supposed to be 60 minutes, and so it was a 60-page script. And so then we obviously rewrote it as a half hour, and it took a lot of work and a lot of time to write. And so I think by the end of that, I had kind of figured out how I wanted to make all of these characters sound. And then we honestly had the most amazing writer's room. It was all such incredible people with so many amazing and different perspectives, and they all brought kind of their own strengths to this show that were so incredibly helpful. And I think I really just trusted them. Also, if there was ever anything that I felt like a character wouldn't say, that could obviously be adjusted, and I could give that note. But also, oftentimes when the writers had questions about words that teenagers actually used or didn't use, or like how would a teenager phrase this line, they would just send it to me, and I would help them kind of craft a way that like compromised the characters' like syntax, I guess. So honestly, yeah, it was really easy to kind of trust this group of people. They were all so brilliant.
I know sometimes with any creative work, taking notes on it can be touchy or difficult, especially when it's characters that are near and dear to your heart. I can't imagine adding in a family dynamic to that. Did that make it more difficult sometimes, or did it help with that shorthand of like, hey, I'm going to be real about this?
I think it really did help with the shorthand. I don't think Daniel or I are particularly sensitive about things like this, and I think we were both very honest with each other. So I think our partnership has been very strong with the family dynamic. Definitely, we have a shorthand. I think that we're able to, when working together, get through drafts very quickly. And we just kind of, I think we came to a place of really understanding. Our writing partnership style is often like one of us will take a pass at a script and then send it back, and we'll kind of send the drafts back and forth until we're satisfied with the final concept, just so it's as kind of synthesized and together as it can possibly be. And I definitely think we got to a point of understanding why the other had made a specific choice with phrasing or dialogue or something like that. And we just learned to really trust each other a lot. So, I definitely don't think, obviously, of course, getting notes on writing can be touchy, but I think that with my dad and I, we just had a very, very good partnership.
It's interesting because, Zelda's other dad is a producer on the project, and he and I have worked together for years. So I think Zelda was definitely used to observing kind of family members who work together and obviously also live together. And I think one thing that also really helped my partnership with Zelda is she got that, like, there was a lot of information I could bring about writing and, writing for television. And I got that if the show felt like it was being written by adults, then we had tanked. So there was a lot of times where, I would feel like, Zelda could offer something about how a narrative should unfold that might even be like contrary to the way that it should unfold, with whatever, screenwriting like rules there are. But that, like, she would say, but this is more real. This is more authentic. This is what would happen. Let us go off on this tangent. As an example, she really, was cautious about how shows about teenagers can over-focus on romance. And yes, we have a lot of romance and crushes and so on in our show, but she also wanted there to be stories of friendships and to be stories of kids who are hanging out and getting bored, because that's, to her, like, what is the reality of her world. And sometimes those things, as a writer, you kind of are like, oh, yeah, but that's not enough conflict. And it was really interesting for me and for all the writers to listen to Zelda and say, oh, yeah, you know what? If we go off on that quote-unquote tangent, it actually might be more real or more profound.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that, of the push and pull between quote-unquote the way shows ought to be made, or Sid Field would throw the book at this, and yet how fresh this feels, and how true the voices feel. I can't check your work on this. I'm 43, and you could tell me that this is absolutely accurate, and I'd be like, sure. But I feel like it is accurate in a way that, watching 90210, as much as I enjoyed that show, I knew those were 25-year-olds in a high school, and not really reflective of my experience. And I feel like Generation is I would have sworn you just found Chester. That was not an actor I knew. All the characters.
I love that. That's amazing.
I would get that feeling that this is everybody's first role, and didn't we get lucky? In terms of the success of getting an order increase, I guess what I'm feeling like is season 2 is really kind of the back half of 1, and that was an order increase after the fact, was it not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that something like a win? That
originally they had ordered 10 episodes, and then.
Oh, so that was why I was curious if these plot lines were something that you were ready to extend. Was that a success you were prepped for, or was it oh gosh, we've got to? It definitely feels like you had it in mind the entire time. I would swear that this is how this was written.
surprise, but a very welcome one. So the original order was for 10 episodes. And then when the pandemic hit, we realized we couldn't go back to shooting as soon as we thought. HBO Max, because they were very excited about the show, said, well, let's take this time to write more episodes, and we'll release them in 2 blocks of 8. So essentially what we did at that point was take what we had been exploring over 10 episodes and kind of move it into 8. And then that gave us the opportunity to let these characters' kinds of stories and relationships build into the second half. There is no better gift to get as a writer, and particularly when you're dealing with an ensemble show with characters as rich as all of these characters, any which of whom, don't think that was the right pronouns, but any of whom could be the lead of a show themselves, you want all that extra time. And so, one of the things that we did was say, okay, well, the first block is centered a lot around Chester. Chester remains a core figure in the second one, but we really want to elevate Riley's storyline and dive more into her kind of internal life, and let us go in that. And so, and without giving away any sort of spoilers, there's a couple of perspectives coming up in future episodes of characters that you would never think would be given their own kind of storyline. So it was really a gift to us to be able to do that.
Well, thank you both so much for telling me about it today. I really can't wait to watch the rest of the second block, and everybody can go check out Generation on HBO right now. Yeah, absolutely fantastic show. Thank you so much. TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener-supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.